Ready? Go.
All right, we didn't talk about rails. These are half rails. Talk about entrapment. Full rails are considered a restraint in facilities. So you can't put full rails in a facility like assisted livings. Never. The state will hit them with entrapment issues and write them up. Half rails are allowed if they have got a variance in place by the physician, which means they've got an order, the doctor's saying that they're not being used as restraints, they're just being used as an assist type thing. Reason in assisted living, they don't have enough manpower to get, if there's a fire, they don't have enough manpower to get everybody out of there in time if these are being used as a restraint. So these will go on this little knob here loosens this little hook system here. This one's going to go on the top, this one's going to hook underneath the angle iron on the bottom. And when you put these on, you're going to have to unloosen, you got to loosen that quite a bit to get it to go under that bottom angle on the bottom there. Then you just get these good and tight. These will loosen up over time, so you're going to have to teach your people to check these. If they're getting loose, they're going to have to tighten these up. Probably, if they're being used a lot, they probably need to be tightened up every week because there's going to be a lot of torque placed on these things. So you get it snug, and then you wiggle it a little bit and get it even tighter.
So if that comes completely apart, it's kind of a no-brainer how to put it together.
Yeah, if it comes apart though, I don't know, Scott, can you get on this right here? There's a spacer that you've got to have. So you've got this round nut that you screw in with a spacer on the outside. If you don't have that spacer on the outside, this is going to be too close. You won't be able to close it. You won't be able to turn it and get it tight. The other thing with these is you want to minimize the gap. Here, someone, if their head gets caught through there, they're going to get, they can strangle. So we've got to have that gap pretty tight, about no more than 4 inches at the most, probably on that. So keep all rails on the head foot, or the head part rather, need to be pretty close to this headboard.
And the rails are installed on the movable portion of the bed, not the deck of the bed.
Correct. This part of the bed that moves is the one that you've got to have it on.
Okay.
This part here, if you try to put on there, you'll never get it on. Okay? And then these rails will go up and down. Turn this a little bit. These rails will go up and down. This little bar here pulls out and allows the rail to drop. And then it locks in. Just show your people how to do that real quick. Okay? You grab me a full rail there, Shad. We're going to put full rails. So these will be on both sides. On occasion, you'll have someone say, you know, I want 2 half rails on one side. And you can't do that because what's going to happen is this one will be over here, this bed will come up and they're going to hit. And you'll bust up your half rails. And so if they really want that kind of protection all the way along the bed, they need to use a full rail. Here's your cross members. You've got a little hole on the side here. This is going to enable your pin to work on these. You'll see that in a minute. These full rails, telescopes here, these are a pinch point. So we want to keep that pinch point away from the patient. We want to put that down by the foot. If you have it on up here and this bed's going to be moving and this piece comes up, the person's got their hand on there, there's a chance of them getting their fingers pinched. And we don't want that. So we want to make sure that this extension is by the foot. Okay? This part here, it's got a little tab. This is going to go underneath the angle iron of the bed here. And then this rotates down to get it out of the way. And then you do the same thing over here. This little thing is a spring loaded. When you set this up, make sure it's straight across. And then this pin system here is what goes in. Can you see that, Scott? Mm-hmm. If you go down, pull that pin, and that locks that part in. And then to let all the way down, you pull again, and allows the rail to drop. And then to pull it up, it locks in place on its own, but to release it, you have to pull this pin. So again, the telescoping part is away from the patient's hand. And that provides, oh, we're too far. See what we did there? These are too far apart.
Extended bed.
So this one,
We do have
because we
extended-
have the extended bed, this one's going to have to come up. I forgot about that, Shed. So this one, instead of, let's see if it's up. She's going to have to move this up. Yeah. that'll work. And then line these up, put this back together. And these can sometimes be a pain. Right, James?
Yes.
Okay, very important thing, when you have it all set up, make sure it's plugged in. So let's plug this in. Let's put it down over there. So we're going to plug this in, make sure it's working. Before you leave with any piece of equipment, you want to make sure it's working. So you're going to run the bed, the head of the bed up and down. You'll want to do, if you've got rails on the bed, you want the rails to be on it when you're testing, because these rails can get out of whack, a little bit out of alignment, and make it really hard for this bed to come up, and it'll bind it in such a way that it makes it impossible for it to move. Then you do the same thing for the foot. I don't know who this is. That's a family member trying to get a hold of me for one of our Silverado patients.
Oh,
So everything, you want to make sure this runs all the way up and down. When it hits the max at the top, it'll just stop.
so both head and the foot position are at their maximum elevation, and then you lower it to their bottom.
Yeah, we want to run the whole movement. Now we took the extension bar off, but then we would want to run that extension, make sure the bed runs up and down. So what we're looking for is this running up and down smoothly. Is this holding up here? So when we're cleaning these should be cleaned and tested a little bit and put a little bit of oil on them if they're a little tight. Because what will happen is if these are really, really tight or rusted and they don't move smoothly, this will actually bend where you attach this drive motor on the bottom. It will take that and it'll just fold that thing right over. It'll bend it right over. If these are really, really tight, that motor's really strong. It'll bend that. It's amazing. But you've seen that several times, haven't you, James? And it'll ruin. And then your head spring is ruined.
So when the rails, even full rails, are installed properly, there's no chance of that drive motor bar being bent.
Correct.
If the rails get misaligned, that's when the trouble starts with
Correct.
the motor
Yeah. And
bar.
if these get rusted and they get really, really hard to compress, then that will bind this up and make that just bend that right over. The other thing is when you've got at a patient's home, instruct them that they don't store stuff under the bed, because as the things are spinning under here and moving, it can break things up and ruin things. Okay. All right, that's rails on a bed.